Okay, so welcome to part 3. So what we're going to do, the pins pretty much fit as I showed in the last video because of all the slop in this Defiant. It does still rotate, but we want to do a little bit of key work. So we will fine tune it some. And I've demonstrated this before, but we'll do it again. So I'm just going to take a magic marker and mark up the top of the key real good. I use red just because it, under my lighting, it just seems to work a little bit better. I mark the sides as well, and this is just because sometimes your file ends up hitting the side of the key, and just helps you find the spots. Now, there's only a couple pins that we really have to concern ourselves with here. So I'm going to load it up to remind myself which ones those are. And I'll take a look at it. So it looks like 4 needs to come down a little bit, and 2 needs to come down a little bit. So I'm just going to drop only those 2 pins out. I accidentally dropped another one, but that's not a big deal. And I'm just going to grab a file, one of these jewelry files. It doesn't really matter which one. And go down in the chamber, and I'm just going to score up the key. And you want to try to get it the length of the chamber so you know you're getting the whole thing. Sometimes you can get a good reflection going down in there, and you can actually see a little better. You can see how much you've got. If you've scored the key enough, take our key out, and yeah, you can probably see there and there. And now, if I had to take a lot off, I would use a disc and the Dremel. I've got that in some other videos. But we don't really have to take very much off of this at all. So I'm just going to use one of the jewelry files. I want one with a little flatter surface on it to get this guy up here. I may have to do some of this off frame just because the way I have to hold this. Yeah. And we'll load it up. Wrong pin. Yeah, that's better. Put it in here and see what happens. Yeah, it's smoother. Could be better. Could be better on 4. I'm just going to repeat this process basically until I get that 4th pin sitting good and level. So we've got it pretty smooth. It's not really snagging unless you jiggle the key to some weird angle. As long as it's in there all right. It's turning okay. So now all we've got to do really at this point is get this guy loaded up. And fingers crossed. I don't think he's going to be a very hard lock. Hopefully it'll be kind of good. I don't bother too much with springs. You can vary them. That does have its advantages. I don't know if I want to put that much thought into it. Especially with some of these big pins, though, I will point out if you're using really big pins like I am, sometimes if you get a really big spring in there, it's just not enough room in the chamber for it all to really work very well. But yeah, now we're just pinning it up like you would. Doing most of this pinning work off camera just because of my finger. You guys don't need to watch me fumbling around with it. Yeah, I don't know if you watched part 1, I said my finger is actually not as bad as it looks. Yeah, actually I took the bandage off yesterday. It's a lot worse looking than I thought it was. Problem is where the cut is on the tip. I use that part of my thumb all the time, and I apparently keep banging it into things, and I keep using it. Like I can tell you right now, this is a bit painful on the finger. Okay, now we load it up. Now, the other day I mentioned some other pin work I plan to do on the key pins, and you know what? I completely forgot to do that. I just woke up this morning and fired up the video and started doing this. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah. And it works. A little awkward to pull it out there. Alright, so let me drop the back on here, but we're going to have to do a little test pick on it. I don't think it's going to be too difficult, but let's take a look. Okay, so we're just going to give it a little test pick here. I'm not expecting this lock to be very hard. Not a whole lot going on in there. It should make it too difficult. I do not have the back on. And the back can help kind of stabilize the core in there. So it's possible that this is going to be easier or harder without the back on. Pretty decent feedback across it. Ooh. So pin 2 and pin 1 actually working really well together. you get kind of this moment of a lot of feedback. And probably because we got so much standard stuff in there, you kind of then hit this point of not a lot of feedback. I'm not seeing the long T-pin really take hold yet. Okay, I think we're going to call that, say that passed inspection. Actually worked better than I was expecting. It's not great. I used a pretty shallow pick on it. I tend to use something a little higher, picking these quick keyways. But that kind of worked. So we're going to completely lock it up now. I thought about reopening it and going back and doing a bit of work on some of those other key pins. But you know what? It worked well enough. So there we go. That is our challenge lock. Nothing left to do now at this point, but name it. What for a name? Let's see. Here's a Joy Division VHS tape. Well, we've already used Fact 37 to name a tape. Yeah, I've still got some VHS tapes laying around. Let's see. I've already used Romeo's Bleeding to name a lock. What else? Herr Ubu, no, we've already done Ubu Roy reference. What else have we got around here? Let's see, what do they have? What's their first song? Snow. We'll call it Snow. Now I just pop in the oldest engraving bit that I have for sticking the name on the lock. It's old, it's crappy. Ow. Good enough. Just use these tags. You can buy a whole ton of these tags at Lowe's. They cost very little. Honestly, if you need help knowing where to get tags from, you got a bigger issue. But you know what? I have just used tape before. I stuck painter's tape and stuff on these. And just slopped my name on it with a magic marker. Trying to get a little more professional now though, right? Use an official tag. I used to use cardboard too. Stick our name on one side. Average picker. This one is called Snow. So now there's nothing left to do but send it off to somebody and Shackle Jackal. This is one of the ones I'm going to send you back for those other couple you sent me. So, yeah. Now it's just a trip to the post office, but I'm not going to take you guys with me to the PO. So a briefer little part 3. I'm going to hit pause and make sure there's nothing kind of bonus-wise I think that needs to be added. I think we've got it, though. Clean up the workspace a little bit. And later we might do another episode. We might look at some just other little things you can do. I didn't do any modifications to the core except taking the edge off of that one chamber. We might look at some other stuff that sometimes I'll tend to do. And there we go. All right, guys. That's it. That's part 3. I don't know if I'm going to be able to... Man, I lost a lot of the footage from part 1. iPad was getting a little full, so I don't know. I'm going to be able to upload all of that. It's basically just more grinding anyway, right? But I did go through the pins one by one. But I think you get the point. So there we go. Pocket Woman, you kind of inspired me to do a much more thorough build, including showing all the shaping and grinding. So I hope you've gotten something out of this, and maybe one of the other people have too. So there we go, guys. You have a good one.